Hello and welcome to another episode of More Veggies Mom. Just recently I showed you a recipe on chickpea nuggets. Today we are doing a chickpea loaf. We're going to start by cutting some vegetables, beginning with carrots. To begin, cut off the ends of your carrot, and then it tapers off and gets smaller to one side, so kind of cut halfway or about where it starts to get a lot smaller. This side is just about the right size. This one we're going to cut in half. What we're doing is we're just trying to make them roughly the size of chickpeas, or a little bit smaller. We're just gonna give them a rough chop. That's it for our carrots. We're gonna do 2 of those. Now we're gonna do the same thing with celery. I wanted to show you this cool trick. If your celery begins to get a little bit wilted, just take what you need and put it into an ice bath, so that's just ice and water, and let it sit for a few minutes and it'll firm right up. I wouldn't suggest putting the whole celery plant in there, but you know, you can do the stalks that you need. We're going to do the same thing as we did with the carrots, try to make them roughly chickpea size and just give them that rough chop. And now we're going to do our onions, which I have already peeled. Make sure you're keeping your fingers curled and your knife up against your knuckles, using it as a guide so that we don't lose any fingers. Give a little slice there on either side. Keep your thumb behind so that you don't chop that off. Now we're going to do 2 to 3 cloves of garlic. I'm doing 3 because mine are smaller. Take off the root end there. We're just going to mince this, giving it a slice. I forgot to mention before, I did have my oven preheated to 375, so make sure you do that before you start chopping. So I have my 2 carrots, 2 celery sticks, and 1 onion, and 2 to 3 garlic cloves that have all been chopped or minced, as the garlic was minced. Inside my food processor, I have put half a cup of milk. It can be any milk. I used almond. Unsweetened, unflavored for sure, but any milk is fine, even just regular cow's milk. 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, 2 tablespoons of liquid aminos, 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 2 tablespoons of flaxseed, 2 tablespoons of tomato paste, a teaspoon of liquid smoke, and half a teaspoon of salt. Oh, and then a pinch of cayenne pepper. Seems like a lot, but it's just a little bit of a lot of things, and it's worth your time, and it's stuff you're probably going to have around. The flaxseed, however, if you don't have any, you can just use 1 egg. That works just as well. We're going to add our veggies into this. Some of them will go on the counter, you know, if you're like me. And then 2 cans of rinsed, drained chickpeas. If your food processor is smaller than mine, you may have to do this in 2 batches. We are going to pulse this until you cannot see any more whole-sized chickpeas, but you don't want it ground into a puree and all mushy and gross. I'm going to stop and scrape down my edges. Get a better look at it this way. Have a look at it. Now it's really liquidy, but you can see that there are no full-size chickpeas, but still not like mushy and nasty. Inside, oh, I've got a celery in here. Inside this bowl, I've got 2 cups of panko breadcrumbs, and I am just going to add my chickpea mixture to the bowl because my food processor is not large enough for me to do this inside of it. If yours is large enough, go ahead and just do it all inside your food processor. And I'll just mix all of this together. So I've got that well mixed together now, and I've got a 9-inch loaf pan and some cooking spray. I learned this trick on America's Test Kitchen, that if you spray it over your sink, you're not going to have the cleanup of all the grease and oil all over your counters and things. So go ahead and spray your pan. Fill it. And you're going to press it down inside the pan. And yes, I spill a lot. If you guys keep watching my videos, you will notice that. If I slowed down, I guess I wouldn't spill so much, but whatever. So I just press that down in, and then I like to give mine a little space on the edges because we're going to put a glaze over this, and I want it to kind of fill in that crack there. So this is how it looks with that space between here. We're just going to put that in the oven for 30 minutes. And while we're waiting, we're going to make a glaze. The glaze for our chickpea loaf is very simple. I have 1/4 cup of tomato paste and 1 tablespoon of liquid aminos in here already. I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup and 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I have them both in the same measuring cup. It's a 1/4 measuring cup, but half of a 1/4 of a measuring cup is 2 tablespoons, or 1/8 of a cup. So I just did 2 tablespoons of the maple syrup, 2 tablespoons of the apple cider vinegar, and that way I don't have to wash 2 things while I show you how to do this. We're also going to do 1 teaspoon of paprika. We're gonna mix those together with a fork until it's nice and smooth. It takes a little bit of work because of the tomato paste, but it should just take you a few minutes, or a couple of minutes really. And it's ready to go, and we'll just set it aside until the chickpea loaf has been in for 30 minutes. So I feel it's important to mention that I am not a vegan, nor am I trying to encourage you to stop eating meat. I did spend about a year strictly eating and cooking whole food plant-based, which has given me a lot of knowledge and creativity as far as my recipes go. But some of you may be concerned about having enough protein in the meals that I'm making. The thing is that only meat has a complete protein by itself. All plants have protein, but not complete. So if you take either beans, nuts, or legumes, and you couple them with another vegetable or whole grain, you are going to get a complete protein. So where I have done the vegetables with the chickpeas, that would be a complete protein, plus I'm doing green beans with it, so you're good on your protein that way. That being said, let's make some bacon. It may sound a little strange, but I like to cut my bacon frozen because it all stays right together and I don't get the little fatty pieces that are hard to slice through sometimes when they're all stacked. So I freeze them and then I cut it out of the package. I am just going to do, about a 1/2 inch on these. This is 1/2 of a pound of bacon, by the way. See how easy that is to slice through when it's frozen? I turn it the other way. As these cook in the pan, they're gonna break apart and you don't have to worry too much about them being all stuck together. You just kind of pull them apart with the spoon you're using to stir them. It's been 30 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and take this out of the oven and get the glaze on it. Just pour that right on top. Spread it out and kind of let it fall into the cracks in the sides that we made. And then it will go back into the oven for another 30 minutes. I've preheated a large pan to medium heat, and I'm going to put my 1/2 pound of cut bacon in there. Since mine is frozen, it will take a little bit longer to cook, but it doesn't require too much attention, so I can keep going back and forth if I need to. I have some cut green beans here. I cut and rinsed them beforehand. If you would like a closer look on that, please go ahead and look at my how-to videos on moreveggiesmom.com. So this is my bacon. I like mine pretty crispy, so this isn't quite done yet, which is perfect because we're going to add our beans to it. So we're just going to drain out the fat, but leave the bacon in there, and it'll keep creating more fat that we'll be cooking our beans in. The way I drain my bacon is to get an old can and put it inside a dish. Hold it in there with my spatula and pour it in. That way if I spill, because, you know, I usually always spill, it spills into the dish and not onto my counter. We'll add the beans. Stir this together, and then I'm going to cover it and let it cook for a little while. I will keep stirring occasionally, and when it's that bright green color and it's kind of crisp tender, that's when it's done. Green beans, it took about 7 minutes. I kept it moving so that I was careful not to burn any of the bacon, and when I was not stirring it, I made sure to keep it covered. And that's done and ready to go. Once your chickpea loaf comes out of the oven, you want to let it sit and cool for about 10 minutes before cutting into it. but this is our finished product. We've got our chickpea loaf and green beans and bacon.